What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Retro Yu-Gi-Oh video and back with another Gladiator format video. This is the format held in the U.S. Nationals of 2008 using the May 2008 ban list with a card pool going up to around Light of Destruction. And now the format, which you might have guessed by the name, is mainly dominated by Gladiator Beast. We had a tournament in the format recently on the YGO from Zero Discord server. Join that below if you want to get games in this format or any other format that I featured on the channel and play in our events. But we had a tournament, and actually in the top cut of that tournament, there was a hero beat deck that actually managed to do very well. And this was piloted and built by Sean Talug or PS Alter or one of their many aliases there. But it's a very, very cool list. And, not many people expected Hero Beat to be able to do that well in this format, given, you don't have things like Gemini Spark, which makes it so good in Edison format. But, there are some things that you can do with it. And if you play it as sort of like an anti-meta sort of stun deck, it can potentially match up well into different decks in the metagame. So let's go through the card by card real quick. So firstly, we've got the monster lineup, which is, arguably the most important part of the deck because this is what you're beating in with your opponent to. We got triple Doomcal just to shut off effects, although I will mention that Sean or PS Alter or whatever alias you want to call him by, they mentioned after the tournament that Doomcal was actually not really that good for them, and they wish that they could have swapped it out for something else. Something like maybe Element Hero Captain Gold and a Skyscraper package there. But this just was a bit too fragile. The opponent could play around it too well, and it just didn't do really enough for them there. But still, it's a 1900 guy, which can be good against a variety of decks in the format, especially Gladiator Beast, which do want to run into your monsters. And so if you have a guy they can't beat over, it can be a bit tough for them. We got triple Alias and one Stratos here. This is our hero package. We're playing Alias because it's a 1900 beater, and it's also a light, so it pairs with the triple Honest that are in this format as well. Exiled Force and DD Wordley compete our Rhoda package there, which we are playing 2 Rhoda. And these can just serve as a bit of removal. Also, DD Warrior Lady pairs with Honest because it's a light as well. And then we got double Sidra to pair with the Honest and just get more aggressive as well. For these spell and traps, we've got 2 Book of Moon because this is a very flexible card that can be used to protect our monsters, get over our opponents, things like that. We've got an E-Call to search out the Stratos or the aliases as well, in addition to the double Rhodas. We got a Reborn to revive one of our monsters from grave, same with Premat, and that's actually going to do it for these spells. The deck is largely trap focused because it is sort of a stun deck. So we've got triple Bottomless and double Dimpris. This can be very good against Glads, but also against a variety of other decks in the format. Mirror Force can be very good against things that want to attack into you. We've got double Oppression and double Skill Drain, also very good against a variety of decks in the format. Many decks can't really deal with these cards as well as others can. So, this is sort of your stun package. And we've got a 3rd Royal Oppression and a 3rd Skill Drain in the side deck in case we're up against a deck that really, he's seeing one but not the other. We've got double Hero Blast to bring back our aliases and, potentially pop an opponent's monster. Hero Blast can also be used to sort of like fade DD Crows in an interesting way. So like if you go for Reborn or Premat on one of your aliases and they go Crow to try and stop that, you can go Hero Blast to add back the alias. So that's sort of another thing you can do with Hero Blast. Doesn't really come up that often, but it's a neat sort of thing that you can use to sort of inflate your plays a little bit more. We got double Dark Bribe and triple Solemn Judgment because we do want our continuous traps to stick around. So these are very good at stopping, things like Heavy Storm or even something like a Cold Wave as well. These are very good at stopping. Cold Wave is at 3 and many decks do play it. So it is good to be able to stop that. TT to blow up the board and then a Dash Shoot to spin back things to our opponent's deck. For the side deck, we got triple Lila to get a bit more spell and trap removal and also just have a big guy that we can bring out that pairs with Honest. We've got a Sasuke here as well to get into our opponent's face-up defense vision monsters. Maybe if you see they're on Haplomus or something like that, this can be good to bring in. He's also a light warrior. MST for more back row heavy decks. Knock for more, set focus decks. Another Hero Blast if we're up against a deck that's playing a bunch of weenies. We got double Mask Strict for Monarchs, I believe. And then we got double 7 Tool to the Bandit to sort of get the leg up over our opponent's counter traps. We've got double Shadow Imprisoned Mirror here to shut down dad or turn decks. And then we got the 3rd skill drain there, as I mentioned. Feuding deck doesn't really matter, although having triple Geyzars and triple Heraclinos can come up. So it is good to have these things. But beyond that, that doesn't really matter. So that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Let's dive into some games, see how the deck actually does. So we're going to show off a game that we played against Jim Bob here. If you can get on the channel, always a pleasure to have them on. And we are going to go into the game. They did indeed win the rock paper scissors. They are going to be going first here, and they're going to start with a Stratos there, searching out a Prisma. So likely to be Glad Beasts, but it could be some other decks. Could just be heroes, but they're just going to set 1 and pass back to us. We draw oppression. So we've got a hand of no monsters, just all traps. Not necessarily, the best thing for us, but also not necessarily the worst. This can be something that we can use to sort of play into our opponent's stuff. We're going to set a dim priz, a bottomless, and a dust shoot here. The way I figured is if they've got heavy, this isn't the worst set of cards to lose. We've got Dust Shoot to spin back an opponent's monster. And this also does preserve our oppression from the heavy storm there. And also we've got another dim prison hand if they do get rid of this one. But, we kind of got to commit a fair amount of back row here, given that we don't really have anything else. We're going to shotgun the Dust Shoot here and standby just to know what to use our removal on here. So we get to see their hands. They are on a DD Crow, a Prisma, a Braincon, a Murmillo, a Gladiator Darius, and a Test Tiger. So no matter what we take here, they can Test Tiger something. So we do just want to get rid of that. So maybe I should have set the oppression to play around the Test Tiger a little bit more. But I still think this is fine holding the oppression here. I think it was the safer play. And we do have other removal for if they try and go for something else. So we're going to send back that Test Tiger there. And then they are going to decide to summon out Murmillo here, attack in. We will be dim prisoning that because we don't necessarily want our opponent to, bring up Bestiari and then pop one of our things. Although we could potentially play around that by dim prisoning the Stratos, and then when they bring up Bestiari, we bottomless the Bestiari. That might have been the better play. But also most Glad decks only play one Murmillo, so this does get rid of an sort of removal option for them. So that's kind of nice for us. They're going to attack him with Stratos, dealing 1800, and then passing back to us. We draw Judgment here, so that does make me a little bit more insulated into heavy. I know that they don't have a heavy in hand because, I saw their hand with Dust Shoot. If they top deck heavy, they top deck heavy, but we do have Solemn now to stop that. And so I think it's fine going for 4 now. They are going to go for a Cold Wave here. I think that is Solemnable. I think that is something to Solemn there. Because, if they Cold Wave and then some out of Glad Beast and then attack in and, pop one of our back row like Royal Oppression, that'd be really bad for us. So I think I do just have to stop that. I do lose half my life points, but I would have lost more than half my life points if they summoned out like Darius here, for instance. So I think it is a reasonable trade. We're going to dim priz that Stratus, just get it out of there. And they're just going to pass back to us. We draw Sidra. So that's a bit awkward because we dim priz the Stratos. Maybe we should have held off of the dim priz, but the reason why I did that is because I want to have enough life points to play Oppression. So it's not really worth, just keeping that Stratos around beating into our life. They're going to go for a Prisma here. We could bottomless this. I don't really feel the need to. If they go for Test Tiger, I do have this Book of Moon to set that down, or I've got Oppression just to stop it. So I feel fine with this. They go for Monster Reborn there on the Bestiari, and I think we do just have to go for Oppression here, paying 8. This is awkward because it does cause us to, not be able to summon our Sidra next turn. We could have potentially held the, or not held, but I guess we could have just bottomless the Bestiari when it came out, and then ensured our Cyber Dragon hit, but I don't know, I feel like we can clear the Prisma this turn. Actually, can we? We can't really clear the Prisma. So I guess maybe we should have actually held the Oppression, used bottomless on the Bestiari, and then gone from there. That might have been the better option. I think in hindsight, that was the better option. But I got a bit tunneled in on that Oppression, especially because they're going to be attacking in for 17 here. And I do want to let that go because I think Book of Moon is important for stopping the Braincon. So I can't actually Book of Moon my own Sidra. So given that, I wouldn't be able to pay for Oppression either way here. So maybe I should have just kept this set, not done anything with it. And just use the bottomless. But it's tough to say. I draw Rhoda here. So what I'm going to do now is, because my Sidra is kind of useless with the suppression up, I'm going to go for the Sidra, see if they want to pay for it. Maybe they think we've got something else there and they won't pay for it. Indeed, they do not pay for it. Now, they mentioned after this game that they realized that they forgot to do it after the fact. So if they had done it, it would have been kind of rough for us. But we do have Rhoda for Stratos here that we can then bring out and use there. We can search out an alias here to just have another hero. And then we can attack in with the Stratos into their Prisma there. So if we had done that, then we would have actually run into a dim priz that they had set there because I feel like they would have used it. But then we got bottomless and book to basically stop whatever other play they might want to do. So it wouldn't be the worst for us here. We also have aliases follow up. So yeah, and it looks like they don't really have anything else they want to commit. We knew about the Darius. We actually know their whole hand here. It's just Braincon, DD Crow, Darius. But they're not going to commit that into something like a bottomless, which I think does make some sense. But if we had sort of shifted our cards around differently, I think we still would have been in a fine spot here. And yeah, I think we actually would have been in a better spot. So I think we still would have won this if we had played this correctly here. But, you'll live and learn. And we draw into Doomcow, which is also nice. We're going to hold that in hand, summon out the alias because they know about the alias. Then we're going to attack in for 18 plus 19, and that will indeed all go through. So I'm feeling very good about that. Part of the reason why I got aggressive with everything here is because, one, we've got 600 life points. So we kind of need to go fast right now. And two, you know, if they've got Mirror Force, they got Mirror Force. They can't use Brain Con. And then we can summon out Doomcal next turn and go for that. But Doomcal's kind of awkward because they can shut it down with Crow, which is kind of annoying. They summon out Darius. We're going to go for a Bottomless there, and they use Solemn to stop that Bottomless. That's a bit awkward for us. And then they go for Brain Con on the Alias there. We're going to let that go through. We could book down the Alias, but I figure it's probably better just to book down the Darius and, you know, let our Stratos die. Either way, we're losing the Alias or the Stratos, and I'd rather lose the Stratos than the Alias. So we will book down that Darius. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. That 1 is an unknown, and then we summon out a Doomcal here, attack in to their set monster. That will go through, and that will not go through there with the Book of Moon on that Alias. So we're going to set the Mirror Force there, pass back to them, and they will admit defeat. So given that Solemn in the back row, maybe we would have been in a tougher spot than otherwise, but I think we would have used up our back row by that point if we had done things differently. And so I think we still would have eked out a win there, although it is a bit more uncertain, especially with less back row. Maybe they would have been more aggressive with the Darius there. So it's tough to say. But we're going to go in to the second game here. We don't really switch up things too much. We take out a Dust Shoot because I feel like once Gladiator Beast gets going, they won't really have too many cards in hand. And we bring in a Skill Drain because I feel like Skill Drain is very good against Glad Beast. And so I want a third of it. But this is a pretty good opening hand. Now, it's a bit awkward. We do have to play around the Alias getting banished here because I do want to engrave for our Hero Blasts here. But we do have 2 of them. So I'm going to bring out a Doomcal and then attack it in the set, see what happens here. They will go for a Dim Priz there, so we will lose the Doomcal. And then we're just going to set the Bottomless pass back to our opponent. We'd set the Hero Blast if, you know, the Alias was already engraved because that plays really well into Bestiari. But without that, we're just going to set the Bottomless. If they summon out Bestiari, and then go for a Geyser's play, we can Bottomless it. But I doubt they'll do that. They're just going to summon a Darius there, and we're going to Bottomless that. Saves us a little bit of life points here. And with only 1 monster in hand, I kind of want to make sure that I have life points to spare. They're going to attack in with the Sangan there, set 1, pass back to us. We draw Skill Drain now, which is pretty good. And here, I think there's a couple different things I could do. The play that I make is just summon out Alias and attack into the Sangan, which I think makes sense because it gets a bit aggressive here. And, you know, we don't necessarily want to set the Alias, but in hindsight, it might actually be worth setting the Alias. And the reasoning for that is it gets Alias engraved to turn on our Hero Blast and can be removal that does not play into a Dim Priz, which they might have more of, given that they know that there's Hero Beat, right? So I could just set Alias, and then if they go for, like, a Bestiari play, you know, I can use Hero Blast to bring it back and pop the Bestie. But they could just go for Laquari, which is kind of bad for us. We could set Skill Drain as well to stop that, too. And then, you know, Hero Blast back the Alias and then bring it out and attack over the Bestiari. But that seems like, or the Laquari, that is, that seems like a lot of extra steps for something that still plays into the Dim Priz that we're trying to play around in the first place. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to summon out the Alias there and unfortunately run into a Bottomless. So that would be the sort of like one benefit of setting the Alias there. Is that, you know, if it's Bottomless and they just attack them with Sangan or something, then the Alias is not affected by that. And we can sort of just switch to attack in next turn. But unfortunately, it is indeed going to get the Alias because there's no Gem Spark in this format. Can't really use that to then get engraved for Hero Blast. But we can set a Skill Drain here, which will be good against Glad Beast. And they are going to attack him with Sangan. Attack in with Laquari. We actually are going to let the tag out happen here because I figure they're probably going to go into Bestiari. And if they go into Bestiari, that's a monster we can more easily beat over here. So they're going to go for the back row. We chain Skill Drain to that. And then they're going to set 2, pass back to us. Now, this could have been a bit of a mistake because if they summon out another Glad Beast, they can go for Geysers here, which is a downside to doing this play, especially since most of the monsters I play have more attack than the Laquari would under Skill Drain. But I think this could potentially make sense if I'm worried about back row and I draw into like a Doomcal Knight. Or actually, that didn't really... Yeah, either way, I should have probably left them with Laquari instead of the Bestiari because all my monsters that would actually wall off against the Bestiari would also wall off against Laquari, except for DD Warlady exactly. So, yeah, I think I made a bit of a misplay here. I probably should have left them with Laquari instead of the Bestiari, but unfortunately, I just will set the Hero Blast, set the Mirror Force, pass back to them. They're going to go for a Prisma here. So ultimately, it's revealed that it doesn't actually matter in the end what happened here, but it's good to think about just in general what the ideal play is, because they do have the Dust Tornado here to get rid of that. They're able to send a Laquari there and then go for a Geyserus. If they had a Laquari on field, then they could have just sent Bestiari, and, you know, it still would have been wraps either way there. So that'll be game 2. Going to game 3, I bring back in that dust shoot because we are going first now. So I think it is good to have. And we draw kind of an interesting hand. I actually do like this hand a bit because it's got a lot of negation. It's got royal oppression. So I feel like we're in a pretty good spot this game. And we're just going to pass back to them by setting the honest and then everything here. This might seem crazy against Glad Beast, but the reason I want to do this is because, one, it's a bit of extra damage because they'll probably attack an honest, take the 200 or whatever amount they would have taken from the Gladiator Beast, and then we can use oppression when that Glad Beast tries to tag out, and then potentially get in on an open field next turn. So I feel like this is the correct play to make here. It could potentially fall to something like, spell and trap removal on the oppression, but we do have Solemn and Dark Bribe here, so I figure we should be safe from that. We will oppression the Darius when it tries to use its effect, and that will indeed go through. Our opponent's going to set 4, though, so they've got a lot of back row as well. I'm going to play around TT by going for the Honest here, adding that back to hand, and then going for Stratos. They will bottomless the Stratos, but we can still search out an Alias here, which is not bad with that Hero Blast there if we can get that set up. Our opponent is going to go for a Proving Ground here to search out Laquari. So the fact that they're going for Laquari is a bit scary because it means that they probably have a way to deal with the Alias here. So they're going to attack in for 18 and then pass back to us. I draw into a Premat here, which could be good if that Alias actually hits the grave, which it very well might not. I summon out the Alias. If they go for bottomless here, I might have to Solemn or Dark Bribe this, but it looks like this will be fine. Now, I could potentially attack into Laquari and use Solemn or Dark Bribe on a Dimpriz if they use it. It seems a bit bad to me, though. I don't know. Maybe it's worth it because then I still have Alias up with Honest. It's not banished, so I potentially, if they clear it, I can use Hero Blast. But it just feels kind of awkward to do, especially because I want these around to protect my oppression. But then again, they're probably not going to use Heavy, and I don't think they have the tools to actually make the best use of Cold Wave here because generally you want Test Tigers and Glad Beasts to actually use that. So maybe it is actually worth negating a Dimpriz here and just going for the attack. But I just decided to pass because I figured they can't really get through this as is. But I'm giving them more time. And again, I think it might just be better to get aggressive here, attacking over that Laquari and then using a Dark Bribe or a Judgment to stop whatever else they might have to stop the Alias. If we actually look at their back row, because I'm just curious about what they have a Dimpriz and a Mirror Force there. That would be 2 ways that they could potentially get rid of the Alias, but only one of them banishes. So if I had actually attacked the Laquari there, if they used Dimpriz, and then I probably would Dark Bribe that and save Solemn for something a bit more impactful, then I actually could have gotten over the Laquari and had the Alias around for later as well. So I think that would have actually been the best play. Sometimes you just got to get aggressive against Glad Beast because Glad Beast, if they can really get themselves set up, then, they're in a really good spot. They set a bottomless here as well, so they've got ways to stop whatever other monsters we bring out. We will set this Dark Bribe here. We do clog up our entire back row, but, we have a ton of negation if they're setting, counter traps of their own. But again, sort of now we see the problem with my approach here where, what moment do I attack in with the Alias? At what point will their back row be gone? No real good point. It's just stalling out. It's giving them more time to draw into what they need. And so I think it was a mistake to take this line of play. But I'm just going to stick with it now that I've done it. So I still have this Alias up. They will MST hit our Mirror Force, so unfortunately we do lose that. And then they will go for a Cold Wave here. We will Dark Bribe that to stop that Cold Wave, and they're just going to pass back to us. We draw Skill Drain, so that's pretty good against a variety of things that they could potentially go into here. We're going to Rhoda for an Alias, summon out that Alias, and then attack in to the Laquari. If they use Mirror Force here, I am fine with that because then we got our Hero Blast online. So they do indeed use the Mirror Force. I was kind of trying to bait that out a little bit. And now we set our Hero Blast and our Dimpriz and pass back to our opponent. They, now that we have an open board, are going to flip up this Darius and they'll attack him with that. Now, I actually make a bit of a misplay here, in my opinion. I go for Dimpriz on the Darius because I'm like, well, Darius is a bit more problematic. They do manage to clear oppression and skill drain. So I figure going for the Dimpriz on the Darius is good. But I think what I should do here is actually use Hero Blast first because they got DD Crow. Then I actually want to Dimpriz the Laquari because there's more damage coming down every turn. But I do missequence here. I go for the Dimpriz on the Darius instead, and then use Hero Blast on the Laquari. But luckily, they do not have the Crow to stop the Alias there. So Alias will come back. They're going to set 2 more, pass back to us. We draw Dust Shoot, which is not really useful here. They go for Mind Crush, pitching our Alias, and that's a bit awkward. We go for the Honest here because I'm like, well, we need to chip in here while we can. I don't think they're going to attack in to our Aliases and stuff because, frankly, Glad Beast under Oppression and under Skill Drain, which we do have in hand, are going to set. Can't really get over our light monsters, so I figured this is probably the best use of this. But I think in hindsight, given how low on monsters we were, I probably should have set the Honest here. just to be a defensive wall in case they ever got into anything. But we are going to run into a Dimpriz, so if we do draw into big guys later, then we can potentially attack more safely into what they've got. We draw into TT here as well, set the TT, pass back to them. They're going to pass back to us. We draw skill drain, so we're just not drawing into our monsters this game, unfortunately. And they're going to go for Rhoda here for a Stratos. So now they're getting into their monsters a bit. They're going to summon out that Stratos, use the effect. And I think about this, and then I ultimately decide to go for TT and skill drain here. Now, I think this was a bit of a mistake on my part because noticing how many cards are in their hand, they do have 2 right now. If they search with Stratos, they get 3. So I think what I should have done is just activate TT, not activate skill drain, set Dust Shoot, and then spun back whatever else they got next turn. Unless they set a 5th card here, then, it's unlikely that they would have been able to get out of the Dust Shoot, and then we actually get value off this currently dead card in our hand. So I go for TT there, though. Now I also have no way to, actually I use Skill Drain to deal with the Prisma coming in hand, but, yeah, I feel like it probably would have just been better to let them get the search, save Skill Drain for later, and go from there. But we summon out a Doomcal into a Bottomless. Again, we kind of just have to get aggressive here. I could have set the Doomcal. Maybe that would have been the correct play because Gladbeast can't, natively get over the Doomcal. So it actually might have been better to play around the Bottomless. But, yeah, especially because I guess they've only used up 1 Dimpriz, so they might have more Dimpriz in deck, I guess. So, but we could potentially have brought this to deck out maybe, which is kind of wild, but something that could potentially happen. Although it's less likely because they could just set up for a Cold Wave play. At some point, maybe, or just get us low enough under the oppression. So, I don't know. It's just very tricky when you're in this sort of matchup and to know exactly what to do. Unfortunately, we just have Reborn and Premat, which both lose to our own oppression. So, we're going to go for these Stratos. They do remember to pay for it this time, and they are going to stop these Stratos from coming out here. We're not going to activate the Premat. It just loses us the game on the spot because they pay 8 again to stop it. So, we're just going to hope that they don't have another monster here. And unfortunately, they are going to bring out another Laquari, so we can't solve that because then we lose either way. I could have potentially solved the Laquari, the first Laquari that came down, but ultimately I don't think it really would have mattered too much here. So, yeah, unfortunately we do lose this one. I think if I played this game here differently, maybe we could have made something happen, but it definitely would have been a bit tricky using up the Dark Bribe and the Solemn. And, in hindsight, it's like, if you use up your negation, sure, it's easy to say, looking back at a game like this, seeing the exact cards that do come down, okay, well, the negation didn't really get used later, so, I should use it up more aggressively. But, in the moment, the next card they could draw could be Heavy Storm, Cold Wave, etc., things that we actually need to use our negation on. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a bit tricky. Let me know what you think the best play would have been here down in the comments below. Do you think that, I was right to play it slow, or do you think it was right to get aggressive? I definitely have come around to thinking that I should have gotten more aggressive in this game with the hands that I was dealt and with what my opponent was playing. But it's definitely tough in the moment to tell. But I do think this does show one of the flaws with the deck is that if your opponent's just able to use Bottomlesses, Dimpriz, things like that, just get rid of your aggression, the deck doesn't really play too many monsters total. So you could just find yourself in for a tough time, even if you've got your stun pieces online, and then your opponent could potentially just beat you down instead. So that is a bit of a tricky factor with the deck. But I do think the deck is still pretty decent. And to show off why I think it's a bit decent, let's dive into a replay from the tournament itself with SMH528, which is Sean's Louis, aka PS Alter, who piloted the deck to a top 4 finish against Artos here, a frequent guest on the channel. And so both these players are very, very good. I'm actually going to show both hands here so that way we can see everything that's going on from both sides and truly evaluate how this deck is in this tournament matchup. SMH is going to set a Hero Blast and Book of Moon here and a Judgment and a Skill Drain. So the reason why they're going for all this is because if Heavy Storm or Cold Wave come down, they do have the Solemn Judgment. I think this is maybe a little bit too greedy for my blood. I probably would have held the Hero Blast in hand, but maybe that telegraphs too much later on that you've got the Hero Blast when you only set it after an Alias winds up in grave. But Arta is going to go for the Murmillo here and then use the effect to tag out into a Bestiary. And now that that's come down, they're going to flip up Skill Drain and stop the effect of Bestiary. I maybe would have done Skill Drain on the Murmillo, just to have a weaker monster for them to have on field. But, I think this is fine. And also, I guess with the Bestiary, they're more likely to be able to go into a Geyserist. So that is a bit awkward there. But they're going to pass back to Artos here, who's just going to go for the Bestiary attacking in, not going into the Geyserist here. These Geysers can't pop, so there's not really much reason to do it. But yeah, that's going to attack in 15, and then Art is going to set a TT and a Rhoda and pass back to their opponent. So they're hoping that their opponent commits something into this board, then they can TT. Exiled Force is not necessarily what Art has wanted them to commit, because that just clears itself from the field anyways. So they're going to summon out a Darius here and try and poke in for 1,700 more. That will indeed go through. So this is implying that SMH didn't really have much back row that can stop attacks, which, you know, we can see here that they've got the Book of Moon, but they don't really have much else until the Alias is drawn. And Alias actually can do something here. You can bring out the Alias, attack into that Darius, and then if Alias winds up in grave, you got Hero Blast to bring it back. So also the Honest here going to be very good with that Alias. Sidra attacking in to the Alias, and then the Honest will be used to get over that Sidra. But in main 2, Arto's going to special summon out another Sidra here, pass back to SMH. But SMH draws another Honest, so that's very good there if you're able to do that. Instead of using the Honest, though, they're going to use Book of Moon. I think this does make some sense because it plays a bit more around Cold Wave. So using the Book of Moon now, I think, is better than using the Honest. Honest is still here as a bit of a surprise for later. And so I think this is the better play to do overall. Ours is just going to say a Solemn set Murmillo now. So I guess that is a benefit to letting the Murmillo shovel stuff back into the deck. It's kind of a dead draw for Artos later on in the game. Although you could argue the Bestiary is also kind of a dead draw later on if you get into this sort of situation. Premat here is going to be used to get at that Exile to try and pop the set, but now a TT is going to come down to clear that Alias. Luckily for SMH, they've got another Alias in hand, and that will indeed go through. Artos debating going for a Solemn there on that Alias, given how annoying that Alias has been so far and how little their hand can actually deal with it. But they are indeed going to let that ride, hoping to draw some other form of removal here in the coming turns. Bottomless is not what they wanted to see. They're going to set the Bottomless pass back. E-Call here is going to search out another Alias here, and that Alias can come down. That's going to get Bottomless. But, you know, even if Artos had potentially negated the first Alias, and so SMH really needed the second Alias to stick, one, there's Hero Blast, so they could have just brought back the first Alias. 2, they've got Dark Bribe and Solemn Judgment, which could negate something like a Bottomless. And it would probably be worth doing, given that it seems like Artos did not really have much defensive traps in the back row there. So I think SMH would have still been in a fine position either way. Now that Artos is down to just 2 warriors left in deck for the Rhodas, they're just going to fire the Rhoda they have set, fire the Rhoda in their hand, grab back Prisma Stratos, that is, and then just set the Stratos. Not really a point to summoning it here, because there are no heroes left in deck, and also skill drains up anyways. So they're going to set that. Alias will attack over it, and Reborn is something here. Reborn can at least go for a Sidra from the grave there, and try and use that to get over the Alias. They're going to bring out a Laquari here as well. They do have Solemn in case there's a Mirror Force, so they just kind of have to go for this and hope that everything works out okay. But unfortunately for them, the Honest will come down, clear that Sidra, leaving Aratos with 200 life points. And actually, this is just lethal damage here. You just tribute over the Alias for the Sidra and get in that way. But they drew the third Honest, so they're going to go for that instead. Plays around less things, I guess, although Solomon Brib could definitely just stop whatever they had anyways. So that will indeed be the end of game 1. Going on to game 2, let's see how SMH does against Aratos here. Artos going first with potential side deck cards like Dust Tornado, for instance. Also Crush Guard Virus. You know, Crush Guard Virus very good against a deck that's playing a bunch of big guys. Although, to be fair, Hero Blast can help recoup your losses a little bit. But Artos going to go for a Crush Card, a Dust Tornado, and a DD Crow set there. Sidra is going to come down here, and Artos is going to say that's fine. And, you know, SMH just going to attack him with the Sidra, not playing into TT or anything like that. Unfortunately for them, Crush Card will come down, and that will get rid of the Stratos and that Sidra there. Hero Blast now, you know, not online. If they'd gone for Stratos Summon as well to search out the Alias, then the Crush Card would have hit the Alias potentially as well. And then they would have had Hero Blast online, but unfortunately for them, that does not happen. So Hero Blast is nice in the case that you get Crush Carded, but unfortunately it doesn't always work out that way. But there's a pretty formidable set of back row there. And Dust Tornado is going to hit one of them, hitting a Dimpriz, but there's another Dimpriz set back there. So yeah, it's going to be a bit tough here. Cold Wave, of course, coming down to, you know, try and get in for an attack and go into something like a Bestiary to then pop something and then have Geysers online for next turn. But Solemn will stop that Cold Wave. Bestiary coming down anyways, attacking in 15, but that will get Dimpriz there and pass him back to SMH. SMH is in kind of a bad spot. You know, they are very, very low on cards here, but they do have the Premat here. Which Premat can be used to bring back something like the Stratos, search out Alias, or the Sidra if they want that. They are going to go for the Sidra. This is, I don't know, I think it honestly is better to go for Stratos here, but I guess you're trying to play around DD Crow. This could potentially come up, but it's probably still better to bring back the Stratos because even if they get DD Crow, like, you don't want them to reborn your own Stratos into their side of the field to then get a search on that. So I think it is just better to pre-mat, get the Stratos, search out Alias, summon out Alias, attack in for 3,700. It's about half their life, and then you're potentially setting up for a Hero Blast play later. But they go for the Sidra instead, attacking in for 2,100 here, beating them down to 59, and then passing back to Artos. DD Crow 1 turn too late, and they're just going to summon out an Honest here, attack in with the Sidra, and then with the Honest, then you can bounce back the Honest to hand, which they will do, passing back to Artos here. So Artos, that Rhoda is not going to help that much, but they are going to go for it anyways, going for Stratos to deck in a little bit more, just hoping for a way to actually deal with Sidra in the future. They know about the Honest, but they can't really play into that too much. They're going to summon out the Honest here, attack in with the Sidra, and then attacking with the Honest, dealing 1,400 damage. They're chipping in a little bit every turn. And then they're going to set a Bottomless here, pass back to Artos. Unfortunately, Artos is drawing all monsters here. Not what you want to see. Rhoda's going to be very good here, searching an Alias to then get that in rotation for things like Hero Blast. And yeah, it's just going from bad to worse for Artos here. They really need someone good off the top to turn this around, but DD Crow is not going to be it. I mean, DD Crow can stop a Hero Blast, but unfortunately it won't be enough to stop this coming turn. So kind of rough for Artos here. They just, yeah, I mean, this is pretty major brick in this game too, but it does happen sometimes, you know. And, you know, sometimes things work out well for the Hero Beat player. Sometimes things work out well for the Glad Beast player. But either way, I think this deck does have some potential legs. I think it is pretty decent in this format. Is it the best deck in the world? No, I don't necessarily think so. I don't think it's necessarily tier 1. Especially since there's so much side deck hate for just all trap-focused decks, like Decrees, for instance, Death Tornadoes to stop things like Oppression or Skill Drain or things like that. And then once you've stopped the floodgates that are causing problems, most decks can do something about, you know, what the Hero Beat player has set up. So I do think this deck is probably more in like the tier 2 range, if it is above Rogue. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's not a fun deck to play, because I had fun playing it. And I think, you know, from this replay, it seemed very, very enjoyable to play there. In this sort of matchup. But just know that it probably won't be beating Glad Beasts like all the time, and you probably won't be able to win a Gladiator Beast tournament with this. But I think it's still a fun deck and still very, very cool to see people innovating on decks that really pop up later in the game's history coming back here. I know there were versions of this deck around in this format at the time, but like based on what we know about Hero Beat now, we generally view it in the context of decks playing Gemspark and things like that, which this deck did not have. So it's cool to see people try and revise the deck and try and make it work in this format a bit more. But that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. As always, if you like what you see here, subscribing, liking, doing all that stuff would be really helpful, growing the community even more, and, you know, having our events grow bigger as well. So that'd be very nice. As always, big shout out to my patrons, Rinsman, Pork Tripkin, Brendan Archer, Tyler Compton, GeoMyFS, Dump Truck, Scout Zero, and Damon. Hasn't mean a lot that you all support me this way. I encourage you to make more videos like this one in the future. I hope you all enjoy as always. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero. I'm signing off. Peace.